Today on the Stedman podcast, we're going to be talking about the topic of freedom of speech. Are freedoms too free to the point that it has caused a lot of issues in people's lives? Or do you feel like that we're having more restrictions on our freedom of speech? We will discuss this right here on the Stedman podcast.
Theodosia writes me a letter every day. I'm keeping the bed warm.
Good morning and welcome to the Stedman podcast. My name is Scott and thank you so much for listening. If this is your first time listening to the show, thank you so much. This show is basically just, I think ever since I've started doing podcasting with theology and backgammon, we've tried to do things a lot on the Christian side of things, spectrum, but also I'm also very big into entertainment and psychology and a bunch of other things. So really this has just kind of become more of, I just feel like talking about this, so let's just talk about it. It really hasn't followed a lot of a system as of late. But again, thank you so much for listening. So today I want to talk about freedom of speech. As some of you know, if you're familiar with the Constitution here in America, or if you're even familiar with American culture, we have certain freedoms in this country, and one of them is the freedom of speech. And freedom of speech is essentially you can pretty much say whatever you want as long as you're not slandering anybody or anything. You have the freedom to do or say pretty much whatever you want. So if you don't like a business trying to put a pipeline through your territory, you can speak out about it. You can protest. You can do a lot of things, and you have the freedom and the right to do that. As a kid, if I didn't like something to eat, I can tell my parents, no, I'm sorry, I'm not going to eat this Kraft macaroni and cheese. It's disgusting. And they have the freedom to basically say, well, if you're not going to eat your food, then you are not going to have dinner, which either I could say, well, I still don't like it, I'll eat it, but I'm just letting you know I don't like it. Or I could say, fine, I just won't eat anything and I'll leave the table and go to my room. So there's a lot of freedoms, and that's basically very basic freedom. However, it seemed like as of late, and especially I think I've noticed it more during this election season and even after the election, just a lot of people who are exercising their freedom of speech, which I think is great. I think it's great that people can exercise their freedom of speech. I even think with social media being an asset and a tool for people to connect, it's also a way for people to post their viewpoints, to be able to speak, even if it's a viewpoint that I may not necessarily agree with. At least people still seem to have that freedom to post what they want, and I can choose to engage in their speech, either to say I disagree with you, to say I agree with you, or I could choose just to kind of read it and ignore it. Or I know for most people, and it seems like a lot of people this election, where if you say something, especially if you're saying something that I don't like, I can pretty much unfriend you. And I think when we get to the point of unfriending people based on their views and their beliefs, I think this is where I'm kind of getting at, where is our freedom of speech going too far? Is it getting to the point where instead of saying, hey, I agree with you or I disagree with you, and you kind of have this conversation, even if at the end you agree to disagree, at least there seems to be some sort of people walking away feeling like, hey, I didn't win anybody over to my cause, or I didn't bring people over to my side on my belief, or I didn't try to convince anybody to vote for the candidate that I want them to vote for, but at least I respect their position, and I respect the opposing opinion and why they feel the way they feel and why they're going to vote for this particular candidate. I almost feel like that if you don't agree with my viewpoint, if you don't agree with my freedom of speech, then I'm going to, in a using my figurative megaphone, to continue to drown you out, to continue to beat you and belittle you with my words. And even in some cases, there have been times where people have said something that another person doesn't agree with, and it has gotten physical, and it has gotten to the point, even to the point of death. And I'm kind of at that point where I go, is this freedom of speech going too far? Are we taking it to a point where people feel like they have so much freedom that it's actually damaging a lot of relationships that people have with other people when they speak? And just kind of an example, and a lot of what kind of started all this is there was that a news story that happened about 3 weeks ago where elected or future Vice President Mike Pence was attending the Hamilton musical. And some cast members found out that he was in attendance, and after the show was over, he was going to leave, and one of the actors began to speak to Mike Pence, and here's kind of a little bit of the transcript that was said. It says, we have a guest in the audience this evening, Vice President-elect Pence. I see you walking out, but I hope you hear just a few more minutes. There's nothing to boo, ladies and gentlemen. There's nothing to boo. We're all here sharing a story of love. We have a message for you, sir. We hope that you will hear us out. And I encourage everybody to pull out your phones and tweet and post, because this message needs to be spread far and wide. Vice President-elect Pence, we welcome you, and we truly thank you for joining us here at Hamilton, an American musical. We really do. We, sir, are a Device America who are alarmed and anxious that your new administration will not protect us, our planet, our children, our parents, or defend us and uphold our inalienable rights, sir. But we truly hope this show has inspired you to uphold our American values and to work on behalf of all of us, all of us. Thank you truly for seeing this show, this wonderful American story told by a diverse group of men, women of different color, creeds, and orientation. So that was the transcript, and that was said, and it seemed like that kind of got blown up. We've seen President-elect Trump basically saying that the cast of Hamilton needed to apologize to Vice President-elect Pence. And it just seemed like that even everybody had an opinion on it, and everybody was saying stuff and saying that, how the actors were being very disrespectful to the vice president, and how dare they do that. And then there's other people who are saying no, there was no disrespect about it, and there seemed to be a back and forth between it, and people are getting heated over something that was said during a Broadway show. And it just kind of had this big fiery reaction to it. And there's a couple of things when I'm reading this transcript, there's a couple of things that I think is interesting. I don't necessarily disagree if there's somebody there and they want to say something to somebody. I think that is fine. I mean, you go to the theater to be entertained, but theater's also a way for people to express their viewpoint. It's also a way to instruct people. It's a way to move people to change, to action, not just entertainment. So if there's times where the cast kind of breaks outside or breaks that fourth wall to be able to address an issue, or even if an actor needed to break the fourth wall or even break character because somebody's being disruptive during the show and kind of has to, rebuke them in a way, then there's the freedom to do that. The one thing that bothered me a little bit about this thing is that the cast had encouraged everybody to basically pull out their phones, to videotape, to tweet, to post all of this throughout the whole world. And I know we live in a time now where almost everything can be recorded and posted on the internet within seconds. Things can, any information that is given can automatically be posted and exposed and can get millions of likes basically within the hour or even within the minute of things. I have an issue when there is an injustice happening, and instead of people acting and doing things, they're videotaping it so that they can try to get more likes. Like that thing, that bothers me. And what bothers me about this is it seemed like that instead of the cast speaking to the president, vice president, and saying, "Hey, sir, we're concerned about your administration and some of your policies that may kind of alienate or not protect the people that we care about or love, or even just the world we live in." I think that's okay. I think that was great. But when you start to say, "Hey, everyone, pull out your phones, videotape this, tweet this, because this needs to go out," I think that kind of is taking it a little bit too far, because then it starts to cause things to be exploding. It ends up not becoming a sacred thing, a conversation between two people amongst a group within that theater. It now becomes a worldwide phenomenon, and then everybody has an opinion, and sometimes that can start to cause disruption. But then I know there is another article that came out almost a couple days after the Hamilton cast confronted Vice President-elect Mike Pence. I'm having problems saying these words, but it's interesting because it says that. But he kind of says that Mike Pence basically says that there's no need for an apology. For him, he says that, and I'm trying to know the actual word that he said, that basically that's kind of, that's their right. That's what freedom sounds like, when people are able to share their voice and not be silent. And I think that's kind of the issue, is that, you have one guy who says, "Hey, you need to apologize because what you did was wrong." Where the vice president-elect says, "Hey, no need for apologizing. This is what freedom sounds like. People have the right to say whatever they want." That's freedom of speech, essentially. And I think that's kind of good that we have these freedoms. I mean, I look at other countries, especially when I can even think back to, and I don't know if this is true, I'm sure it is, but, again, I have an American worldview, a Western worldview, so sometimes, I agree that there may be some bias or there may be some deception in my viewpoint, but it's almost like when you would see people saying, "Oh, we love Saddam Hussein, he's the greatest, but then after Saddam was captured, there just seemed to be a lot of people who are very thankful for America coming in." And you're kind of like, well, the reason why everyone's like, "Oh, we love Saddam," because they had to say that, because if they didn't, then there'd be consequences. We look in China, how they have a special restriction on browsing the internet, and they have certain restrictions on that. So there's not certain freedoms over in China. There's other countries, there's not that freedom of speech. And it's kind of sad. So I think that's what makes America so great, is that we can have these freedoms in place, that there is freedoms that we can freely share and say whatever we want. Like, I know specifically that there may be people who are my friends. There may be people who are in my church. There are people who I may run into at the grocery store, at the supermarket, and we may have a conversation and they may have a different belief system or a different view on a certain topic than I do. But at the end of the day, they have the right to say what they say. I have the right to say what I need to say. And if we don't agree, that's okay. But I think where it gets too far is when it really starts affecting people's lives, where it really gets to the point where it's not just a conversation or even a heated argument where at the end you agree to disagree and you move on. It seems like it has taken to the point of being brutal to people, being slandered, tearing someone down, not only tearing someone down based on their beliefs, but not just saying I don't agree with you, but basically saying stuff like, oh, well, because you voted for this particular person, that makes you un-American, that makes you a racist, that makes you... And we begin to start attacking people's character. And it starts attacking people's professions. And just kind of an example is I have a friend named Megan. Me and Megan have been friends for a long time. Me and Megan met at camp, church camp. That's how we met, and really good friends. And she has her own photography studio called Studio 22 Photography. Check it out. She does a lot of great work. It's always a joy to see her pictures of all the weddings she goes, and not just within where she lives, but she travels all over to do weddings. I've seen her shoot weddings over in South America, over in Europe, and just beautiful, great pictures, and is becoming, I think, becoming a game changer in the photography industry, especially wedding photography. So again, if you are listening and you are planning on getting married and you want a top-notch photographer, I would send me an email and I can give you Megan's information. But it's very interesting because the thing about Megan is also someone who's very passionate with whatever she does, whether it's writing, whether it's taking photographs, but she's also very passionate about her views and her opinions, especially the political opinions. And I remember, and I can't even remember what she was talking about, but there was somebody who basically kind of attacked her viewpoint on the election and just certain things that are happening that the Trump administration is starting to do to try to get ready for when they take the office in January. And there has been some people who have been vocal and have been attacking her, not only saying things about her opinion or viewpoint, but there was one particular person said that, hey, I actually recommended you to a buddy of mine who was getting married, but then after seeing some of your posts, I basically told him to not go with you. And it was kind of one of those things where someone's personal beliefs on something has affected their professional business. And when I saw that, I go, wow, that's kind of a jerky thing to do. And I think, for somebody who's looking for a top-notch wedding photographer, that's somebody who, that should be their decision. It shouldn't be someone else saying, hey, I know I recommended this person, but they don't believe what I believe, so you shouldn't have them be your photographer. I find that to be a bit unfair. Just like when I think people are unfriending people on Facebook due to their beliefs, and I understand unfriending somebody who is attacking you because of your beliefs and saying, well, you're this and you're that and you're that, and you consider them a friend and they're saying a lot of hurtful, spiteful things to you, then I'm okay with you saying, okay, you know what, buddy? I'm going to unfriend you, not because I don't agree with your viewpoint, but you're just being nasty to me. You're just getting to the point where you're being straight up nasty. But I wish I could find it, but I mean, obviously, being a photographer, Megan posts a lot of things on her page, so I can't really actually find. But I like the way how she handled it. She said, hey, She first addressed the political situation, but then she began to address the professional part. And she said, hey, I show much love and respect to all my clients who I do photography for. I've taken pictures of people who may not agree with my political views. I take pictures of people who I may not necessarily agree with certain things about what they say or do, but in a professional setting, I act like a professional, and I do the work that they have hired me to do. And then she went on to say, I remember meeting you one time and talking with you, and you were a very nice and very sweet person, and when you asked to be my friend on Facebook, I accepted your request because of that good positive interaction. And just kind of continued to talk, and goes, even though we disagree on certain things, I still think that you're a very nice guy. We have different political viewpoints, but that doesn't make me see you as somebody who is my enemy, somebody who I think is a jerk, somebody who I think is, whatever nasty thing that she could have said, but she acted very classy and was very respectful to someone who was attacking her. And I think really and I think what Megan had displayed is a lost art when it comes to having debates with people who have different beliefs, who have a different viewpoint. I feel like even with just the way social media is run, even just with these different news outlets, where there's some news outlets who I think are kind of fair, who are very even ground, that they don't try to take a conservative point of view or even a liberal point of view. But there are some news outlets that do take those things into consideration, where they're more focused on a certain agenda. And I can remember just after the election, which I almost wish this article would have came out before the election, so it could kind of make people more aware that, hey, there are some biased news sources out there, and you need to kind of say stuff. Like, I know recently there was that BuzzFeed article attacking the Gaines family, Chip and Joanna, basically because the church that they go to and their pastor was preaching that homosexuality is a sin. And it just seemed like, that article was basically run and produced just to kind of, it wasn't anything that had to make people aware of anything, but you could really, and at least this is my thought and my belief, is that article was printed to basically not only to attack that family, but even to hurt them in the business that they run, to hurt their show that they have on TV. And when you see something like that, you go, well, that's not right for a news thing to go and publish something that's going to destroy. And I think most people know that if you are somebody who believes in Christianity, or you call yourself a Christian, I'd say probably at least 80% of the people who say they're Christian probably believe that homosexuality is sinful. That's just kind of, that just kind of seems to be common knowledge. Now, does that mean that because their pastor said that and preaches that, if that's something they believe, could be yes, could be no. Again, like, you can't really put a label on all people saying that, oh, because you voted for this particular person or you have this particular viewpoint, then that means you are all these things, and there's all these labels attached to you. And I feel like so much now is that we continue to put labels on people, and we don't get the chance to know people. If you see someone who voted for Donald Trump, you automatically assume that they are racist, that they are monoganistic. You believe these things where that may not be the case at all. This person may not be racist. This person may not be, like be a part of the He-Man Woman Haters Club. But you see that there's all this attachment to it. And it doesn't get to the point where, hey, we're sharing difference of opinions, let's talk about it. And if we can't find common ground, that's great, but at least we can knowing that I respect your opinion, you respect my opinion, and even though we disagree, then we'll leave it like that. But that doesn't seem to be the case anymore. And I think, kind of going back to, I think with my friend Megan, is that that's a lost art to be able to say, hey, I know you're attacking me and you're saying a lot of hurtful things about my character and even saying things that are affecting my business. But you know what? Even though we disagree, I still think you're a very kind person. I've met you once, thought you're a great person, and I still think you're a great person. So I think in a way there has to be this mutual of love and respect when we're having conversations. I think that that's good, because I think now with our freedom of speech, we're getting to the point where our freedoms are so much that we're actually taking it one step too far, where we're actually starting to hurt people. We're starting to tear people down. And it's starting to not only affect with people's personal lives, but it's also starting to affect with their professional lives as well. So that's really kind of all I want to talk about today. So let me know what you think. Let me know what's your thoughts about this freedom of speech. Do you think that with our culture dramatically changing, with the media, with social media, with, I don't know, with this election that we just had, like, are we starting to kind of see this, are we kind of seeing the ugly side of the spectrum of free speech that's becoming damaging? Can we find a good balance where freedom of speech is not only great and patriotic and American, but is it also something where we can do it in a very tasteful way? So again, I would like to know what you think. You can go ahead and put stuff on my Facebook page. Just do a search for the Scott Stedman Podcast. I'd like to hear your thoughts and your views on this topic. You can even comment on my website, thescottstedman.com. Or you can send me an email, which you'll be able to email me through both the Facebook page and the website. All right. Well, thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed this conversation. Again, I would like to know your thoughts and feelings about this topic. And I hope you're all having a wonderful day. I'll talk to you later. Bye.
I'm willing and wait for it.